Hey everyone, Larry Bailey here with Brian Vieaux from FinLocker. Hey Brian,
Larry.
we wanted to have um, a conversation about borrower education. For those that don't remember, I started lending in '93 as a processor. I quickly figured out that loan officers, salespeople made more money than processors. So for the next 19 years, for a total of 20, I spent time as originator, business owner, the whole thing. And Brian and I met each other at a dark corner bar, I think is the story. Is that what we
Right.
did, Brian?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Psst, I got a thing. Come over here and check this out." And so we showed FinLocker, and I thought this was really important. Truthfully, all kidding aside, bar education is a huge deal for me. Education in general is. But one of the reasons why borrowers always call me back is because somehow I help them or I help their family. True story. I had someone call me back in December. His son was buying a house in Texas and he wanted to get my vibe on if the deal was cool. I hadn't talked to that guy in 20 years.
Amazing.
Mitch Germansky. And true testament to you help somebody with if you make a serious impact in someone's life and you don't change your phone number and you stay online somehow, they'll find you and they'll come back to you one way or another.
Are you sure
So
it wasn't all those pumpkin pie recipes you were emailing through your CRM to
it
him?
could have been that. I'm really not sure positively, but anything's possible. So
Yeah.
anyway, I want to do on this installment of Recorded Conversations, Brian. I thank you very much for joining me. I thought this was a great opportunity to really get to the core of what you're doing and tell everybody who you are and what FinLocker is. And I'm always a fan of backstories because that's where context meets reality. So
Sure.
tell us more about
Yeah.
you and your whole life story from like when you were born.
So we won't go that far back, but you and I kind of got into the business around the same time. I started in 1991. I started as a loan officer, and my first job as a loan officer was today we would call servicing retention, right? So
Right,
we
right.
were basically mining a large Ginnie Mae servicing portfolio. And you think, 1991, the par rate was somewhere in the 10 handle. And we were, essentially doing rate and term, streamline, FHA refis, taking people from 13 and a half to 10 and a half, saving them a ton of money, blah, 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 blah. The market quickly started to rates started to drop precipitously over the next 24 plus months. And so I went from being one of 5 loan officers to a senior guy with a team of 50, and graduated
Congratulations.
graduated into management early in my career. Didn't originate much directly after 1993,
Oh,
and
wow.
had been in different production management, sales leadership roles pretty much my entire career. I spent 2/3 of 30 years in third party originations management. And why I share that and why I think it's relevant is where in that role I was able to see lenders of all sizes, all shapes, in all geographies with different models, and really start to understand how a traditional distributed retail model that relies on referrals from community-based realtors differs from a consumer direct model versus a lead acquisition model, et cetera. And so um, about 5 years ago now, I made the move, exited out of mortgage production management. By the way, I missed
Yeah, what a great
the
move. That
I
was
missed
perfect timing, Brian. Way
I
to
missed
go.
I missed that 3% market. I was in the fintech space by then. But I was intrigued by what FinLocker was working on at the time. I invested early in the business when I was still at Flagstar. I've known the founders from business relationships back in the late 90s. And the company started in the, trying to solve for some pain points in the middle of the loan manufacturing process, specifically in digitizing bank statements. So
Okay.
today we call that, digital verification of assets, right?
Right.
And
They're actually scanning the statements to OCR to lift the data.
No, no.
No.
FinLocker 7 years ago had created a secure financial locker for a consumer. So thus FinLocker. They created this vehicle for a consumer to connect to their bank account or bank accounts, and then extract all the transactional data from those bank accounts directly and present it to a processor and underwriter in data form, so that the processor and underwriter could then parse through, identify large deposits, do all the things they would do on paper, but they could do it digitally.
Which sounds so basic now, but this was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 7 years ago.
Wow.
There was two things going against that solution at the time. Number one, loan up processors and underwriters, kind of were like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Which is code for this is going to replace me, which we know it never was. Right. And honestly, loan officers weren't ready to have that conversation with their borrowers to, basically tell them, connect your bank accounts here, right?
So now, wait a second before you go on there, because this is again, back in my day.
Yeah.
So when people talk about things that don't work, or it's never going to happen, or I can't get my borrower to do this, right? So I'm going to go back again. I'm going to go back when we used to carry around paper application packages.
Yeah.
Borrowers wouldn't give. We're never going to be able to do an application over the phone because a borrower will never give me their social security number over a phone. And it was like, hey, I need your social security number. They're like, I'm not doing that. I don't know who you are. I'm like, you called me. Like, yeah. Let's move beyond this. And then it was, no, borrowers are never going to e-sign. I don't know if you remember that whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
They're never going to e-sign. Yeah. They're never going to do that. And then it was, they're never going to give me login credentials so we can synchronize the data, right? That was a big one.
Yep.
And now, now we're going to talk more about what FinLocker is doing today. But over the time frame of this period, it's always been, it's not the borrower stopping you, it's the salesperson, or it's somebody in the operations who like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. So therefore the borrower's never going to feel comfortable doing that.
Yep. The way the conversation started, which is around borrower education.
Right.
Who is the primary source of borrower education? It's the loan officer.
Typically it's a salesperson. Yeah.
And how, if we put ourselves in the shoes of a consumer, especially a home buying or mortgage borrower, which is our consumer, how often are they really going to do this process in their life? What is it, still once every 6-7 years, something like that?
Not as many as the loan officer goes through every day.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah. Some people are more than others, but an average person, like I think in my family, my mother and father-in-law, who are now 80, have been through a new mortgage process 3 times.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is a lot. I mean, they're probably ahead of the curve, but yeah, it's not very often.
So I always think about this in the context of, okay, you have a consumer who's not going to do this transaction very often in their life. And so they're never going to get expert at it, and nor should they. Right. And they're coming to you as a loan officer for your expertise. And so if you have the ability to deliver this modern experience, right, through technology, and you can make that part of your talk track, and I don't want to call it a story because that stories sound fabricated, but it becomes part of how you're representing and presenting your products and services. If you've developed the level of trust based on your expertise, they're more likely and most likely going to do what you tell them to do.
Right. We call that in marketing, we call that brand building, right? So if somebody learns that, hey, listen, go to Larry, go to Brian, like they're going to take care of you, whatever you got going on, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to make a plan for you to help you buy a house or figure out when they should refinance, or if you should do anything at all, just go talk to them. That's all we want. Right. And that's kind of what really drew me, when I first met, when I first met your solution here, I had a lot of reaction. So you go from bank statements to education. Was like, where did you make that move? Like, how did FinLocker make that move?
So I was I'll share my screen and we can just do a little walking, talking.